Hello friends, if there is one saint that we could look up to for inspiration to live the virtue of humility and selfless love, it is Saint Joseph, the husband of the Virgin Mary and foster father of Jesus, the Son of God. In fact, these are the two most important virtues that were propounded by Jesus in his public ministry. Jesus, though he was God, humbled himself to take the form of a servant and set us the most sublime example of humility and service when he took off his outer garments, went down on his knees, and washed the feet of his disciples. On that same occasion, during the Last Supper that he shared with his apostles, Jesus instituted the commandment to love as he loved, selflessly, to the extent of pouring out his life as a sacrifice for our redemption. Were there any antecedent influences on Jesus that brought about such sublime teachings which he expounded by his personal example? It is here that our meditation would direct us to the influence that Saint Joseph may have exerted on Jesus in his growing years. And that leads us to ask the question, was Saint Joseph necessary in God's plan of salvation? While it is certainly true that very little is said about Joseph in the Gospels, and he does not personally utter a word in the Gospels, it doesn't mean that he was insignificant and can be reduced to a footnote. Rather, it is reasonable to conclude that the authors of the Bible wanted to communicate the good news of Jesus Christ and thus did not focus excessively on the persons who helped shape his early life. The importance or necessity of Saint Joseph in God's plan of salvation is insightfully articulated by Pope Saint John Paul II in his apostolic letter Redemptoris Custos, or in English, Guardian of the Redeemer. From what he suggests here, we understand that for the eternal Word with his divine nature, which pre-existed with the Heavenly Father, to assume a true human nature manifested in Jesus, this hypostatic union of Jesus Christ the Redeemer was intrinsically dependent upon Mary's consent and very body. And here is the insight on the necessity of Joseph, where the Pope says, so too, it was also extrinsically necessary, given God's chosen plan of salvation, that the incarnation depend upon someone who would act as a loving father for the God-man Jesus and a loving husband for the Mother of God. The Catechism of the Catholic Church explains the consequences of all this so very wonderfully. During the greater part of his life, Jesus shared the condition of the vast majority of human beings. A daily life spent without evident greatness, a life of manual labor. His religious life was that of a Jew obedient to the law of God, a life in the community. From this whole period, it is revealed to us that Jesus was obedient to his parents and that he increased in wisdom and in stature, in favor with God and with man. It is obvious then that Jesus learned so much in his family as Nazareth in the home of the carpenter. Although it is believed that Joseph died while Jesus was young, he played an extremely important role in taking care of him and Mary during his early years. Saint Joseph is easy to look up to in times of doubt and fear. He showed his true character in protecting and taking care of Mary when she was pregnant and that too without any proofs that the child she was pregnant with was the Son of God. This protection continued on as he listened to the angel and gave up everything he knew and loved to take Mary to Bethlehem to find safety before she gave birth. The self-giving, selfless, sacrificial love of Joseph shines out in the fact that he laid down his life for God and for a son who was not biologically his own, showing us all what a true life of trust, humility, and discipleship looks like. He sacrificed his conjugal rights by remaining chaste. He sacrificed his personal plans for marriage and family and surrendered to the plan of God in accepting the role of being the guardian of God's Son and the protector of Mary. Schooled in the selfless love of Joseph, Jesus would obviously espouse in his own teachings what he learned from his parents and was strengthened in his own self-sacrifice because of the Joseph effect on his life. Here are some of the quotes from the saints about Saint Joseph that will strengthen our devotion to him. Saint Bernard of Clairvaux said, "Saint Joseph was chosen among all men to be the protector and guardian of the Virgin Mother of God, the defender and foster father of the infant God, and the only cooperator upon earth, that one confidant of the secret of God in the work of the redemption of mankind." Saint Bernardine of Siena said, "He carried out this vocation with complete fidelity until at last God called him, saying, 'Good and faithful servant, enter into the joy of your Lord.'" Saint Teresa of Avila rightly says, "Those who give themselves to prayer should in a special manner have always a devotion to Saint Joseph. For I know not how any man can think of the Queen of the Angels during the time that she suffered so much with the infant Jesus without giving thanks to Saint Joseph for the service he rendered them then. It is therefore right for us to have recourse to Saint Joseph and implore his assistance in our moments of doubt and ask for strength to always put the needs of others before our own. Talking about the power of Saint Joseph's intercession, Saint Thomas Aquinas said, "Some saints are privileged to extend to us their patronage with particular efficacy in certain needs, but not in others. But our holy patron, Saint Joseph, has the power to assist us in all cases, in every necessity, in every undertaking." Why should we have devotion to Saint Joseph? Saint Alphonsus Liguori answers this question when he says, "We should indeed honor Saint Joseph, since the Son of God himself was graciously pleased to honor him by calling him Father. If then the King of Kings was pleased to raise Joseph to so high a dignity, it is right and obligatory on our part to endeavor to honor him as much as we can." Pope Leo XIII adds, "He was both the true and chaste spouse of the Blessed Virgin Mary and the foster father of the Word incarnate. For these two reasons, Saint Joseph shines among all mankind and approaches nearer than any other saint to the holiness of the Mother of God." Let me end with the words of Pope St. John Paul II, who said, "Saint Joseph was a just man, a tireless worker, the upright guardian of those entrusted to his care. May he always guard, protect, and enlighten families. May we too, like Jesus, live with the Joseph effect in our own lives." God bless you all.